tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is writer Hollye Leven and singer Phil Crosby Jr. Writer-composer Hollye Leven was born and raised in the Midwest. She spent a year at Colgate University and another year at UCLA. But Hollye grew up with music all around you. Your family was very musical.
Yes.
And your father?
My father was a piano player, jazz and blues, and I grew up with him playing around the house, and also he used to play coffee houses and clubs in St. Louis down in Gaslight Square.
Oh, I was wondering where that jazz came in, because you were in St. Louis, I guess,
Right.
at the time.
Gaslight Square was, my understanding when I was growing up, it was sort of the beatnik era, and it was kind of the Greenwich Village of St. Louis. So lots of musicians came through from going from New York down to New Orleans. And so there's a lot of blues and folk and jazz and hip, and comedians. My father remembers Flip Wilson playing his, doing stand-up comedy.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you had a combination of both.
Yeah.
What instrument did you play?
I'm mainly a guitar player, but I also play harmonica and some piano. I write, a lot of the melodies I write are often on piano, but I play all three.
And for a while, you had gigs all over.
Right.
What were you doing? How'd you get that, first of all?
Actually, I was going to school at UCLA, and I had done a demo tape of my songs in St. Louis, and I was at some party where there was a William Morris agent, and somebody else had heard my songs, and they asked for the tape, so I gave them a demo tape, and I was 18 years old, and he said, after he had heard the demo, he said, you're not ready to make a record yet, but I think you have tremendous promise, and we want to put you on the road opening shows in little coffee houses.
Oh, is that how it happened?
Yeah, so I went, my very first tour, I was opening for, actually in a very famous place in Cambridge, Massachusetts, outside of Harvard, which was a place called Passim's, and it was a coffee shop, and many famous people like Joan Baez and Bob Dylan, people had performed there. It was a very hip place, and the first show I played was with opening for Brownie McGhee and Sonny Terry. And then I also opened for Dave Van Ronk and
Muddy Waters.
And then then I toured the country playing these little the bigger places were in Chicago.
But what did you do? Were you just alone, stand up?
I was alone, and I would schlep through the airports. I only would keep a couple pairs of blue jeans and a pair of tennis shoes and 4 instruments. And I had a banjo, and I had a steel guitar where I played blues guitar that I'd gotten in a pawn shop. Actually, my father had gotten it for me, and National Steel, and then 2 guitars.
So you'd use whatever you needed,
Right.
or you took them all on stage?
Took them all on stage, and I wrote, since the way I started writing my own songs is because my voice was so low and raspy, and that was before that was hip. I couldn't sing like Joni Mitchell or
were you in that folk? Was it folk music in a way?
Well, I was younger, but when I was growing up, those were the girls that were on the radio. Joni Mitchell was very big, and no matter how hard I tried, it would come out like a croak. So I just decided to start writing my own songs, and I would write different songs, different song on each guitar or different instrument, and perform in front of lots of people. I had a lot of, as Billy Joel said, chutzpah.
You had a lot, but that must have been fabulous for you, because you were booked in. There was nothing they could do. You had to go on, right?
I had to go on to people who were paying to see somebody else, but I didn't care. I was going to take the stage and make them laugh. I did used to tell stories. Arlo Guthrie, I used to love to watch Arlo Guthrie, and my style of performing sort of was that storytelling.
Yeah. Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Well, then that leads you into this comedy type of thing that shows up in the writing that you do.
Right.
I guess, or stand up, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
I always sort of, I think I survived by having a sense of humor, and I used to love to tell these stories about how that would lead up to the songs.
But like cabaret in a way, right? A little?
It was just the style, again, growing up in folk and blues clubs, and the Polo Lounge, the first play that I'd written that became a cult hit here, because a lot of comedians started hanging out at the show. I would hang out with them afterwards, and I started to say, well, if I'm going to do this again, I want to write a show on a bigger level, and why not Broadway? Of course, I had no idea what I was talking about, but I would, yeah.
But Polo Lounge was it your first play?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that and where it was, and a little bit more.
What actually, the way that got started, let's see, there was a story. I grew up in St. Louis, and my girlfriends used to come visit me here in California. And one was a school teacher, another was a dental hygienist, and they would come visit, and they would like to come see celebrities, and that was, so I would take them to the Polo Lounge.
Oh, I see.
And I used to tell this story to some of my Hollywood friends, and they would always laugh. It was about a story about being at the Polo Lounge with my girlfriends, and they would see celebrities. And a couple of my actress friends said, you've got to make this into a play, and we want to do it in a showcase at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. Oh. So we did it, and there was agents and managers there, and I had written this little piece for them. And afterwards, and this is what changed my life, really, Rob Reiner came up to me, and I thought he was going to say, how dare you think you read, because of course it's my first play, and he said, if you don't make this, he said, you are like a cross between Neil Simon and Tennessee Williams, and if you don't make this into a full-length play, you're crazy. So I decided
Was there music in that?
No, in
music.
That scene. And then the people at the Beverly Hills Playhouse encouraged me to do it sooner rather than later, because I was going to tour more. And then, so I thought, so I wrote this full-length play, and we didn't have the ending till opening night. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing.
But was it still drama? I mean, or comedy? Was there music added by that time?
Yes, they taught me into writing music for it, and the girls would freeze, and they didn't sing their own songs, and then their alter egos would come out and sing these rock and roll songs. And so that's how that started. It got great reviews, and ran for 8 or 9 months in Los Angeles.
And in between, were you writing for films and TV music, or not?
Writing music for, well, yes, I did write a couple of things for a couple of films, but writing songs is what I was doing, and being a bartender.
Oh,
so, trying to support myself.
And then you were collaborating with really top writers here.
Yes, I started collaborating song-wise with some top writers. Yes, and then I had just recently, after many years of being at it, I had my first 2 gold records as a writer.
I know. Right. That was great. I want you to tell us a little bit about that. Why did that take so long?
Well, I guess it's this business, but I will say that one amazing thing happened to me, that I had a baby, and I remember when I was pregnant, and then after I had the baby, I said, well, pretty much my career now I put on hold, and not much is happening. And I said, I'm going to take 8 weeks off from writing or doing anything. I took 8 weeks off, and my first day back at work, Polygram Publishing, who was my publishing company, put me together with a guy who I actually hadn't heard of, but was selling a lot of records, but he was an instrumentalist. And we got together, we didn't know each other, it was a blind date kind of writing, and I wrote, had a lyric writing around in my notebook called By Heart, and we wrote it together, and then I didn't hear anything for a couple of months, and all of a sudden I got a call from Atlantic Records and saying it was going to be the title song of the album, and it did become a hit. And it was written the first day I went back to work, thinking my career was over, but in fact, lots of things were just starting.
That's so great, because then who takes over for you? An agent? Does an agent take it there? Does someone who heard the music take you? I mean, because you go home and go, it's over, or I just love what I did, but who's going to hear it?
Right. And then I remember the funny story is that I was I was at the IKEA with my father shopping for things for the new baby room, and all of a sudden I hear a lyric and something that's on the music, and I went, oh my God, somebody ripped me off. I wrote that, and then I thought, oh, that is the song.
Was it?
So, yeah, it was the song, because I was so not used to it being played on the radio that all of a sudden when it was, I thought that it was somebody else's song.
That's so great.
But then from there, it is a little bit easier to write with good people because they want to take the time, and and then the second song that we did really well with is a guy who wrote the music. CSAC put me together with. He writes the music for The Agency and The Guardian, and got together. Same thing. First time we ever got together, he played a little melody, and I had been working on a song that actually I wrote because my grandmother had passed away, and it was about my grandmother, but I didn't tell him that. And he turned it into about a girl being far away, and it was called Here in My Heart, and then David Foster produced it.
So you went with really...
Yeah.
Well, now you're doing funny business.
Right.
Well, not now. You've been doing funny business. It was in Washington at the Kennedy Center.
As a workshop.
As a workshop. It's been at Mark Taper workshop, and it's at the Coronet, and
This
it's
is our first production, actually.
planning to go everywhere. And it's the kind of thing that can go to every city.
That's what we want.
Because it's, tell us about it. First of all, I saw it and it was fabulous. The music's incredible. They dance on a stage this big and everybody's doing everything, singing. The voices are great. And then the stand-up is good.
Right.
And it's very up to date.
Right.
So was that a takeoff on Polo Lounge or?
Well, after I started, hanging out with comics, I said the next thing I do, I want to think more like Broadway. And to work this hard and have a hit, and it was like a 99-seater. So I wanted to do a world that I knew, which was the nightclub world, and hanging out with stand-up comics. I thought they were fascinating. I looked at them as oral historians, and I thought, how can I integrate the two? And so I made it like sort of the old Catch a Rising Star, where the comics and singers hung out and waited for their opportunity to get on stage. And that's where the idea came from, and comics doing their little bits of their own material that follow the story.
So do you write every single bit of that comedy, though, as they come out?
No, the actual stand-up comedy is their own, and I always wanted it that way because, so it can be, as new comics rotate in, if the show's a hit, that people can come and 6 weeks later they see a different comic.
Well, Ruta Lee was in it, and she had friends in the audience, and I noticed she introduced those friends or talked about them.
That was an ad lib,
Was that ad lib?
Right, and as people come, right. Phyllis Diller was there one night, and that's why we want it. It's sort of a hybrid. It's like an interactive piece in a way, and of course the comics do material as up to date as this afternoon's news, and that's what I wanted. Keep it fresh. But the rest of everything I wrote. So that's really been it's been the challenge, but it's also what makes it compelling.
One of the things I know your credo is you can do it. Someone told me you can do it, and that's obviously followed you for a long while now.
Well, sometimes when I remember waking up in the morning after I'd had this horrible accident, which is a whole other long story, but there was really no choice. I mean, I can do it. I have to do it, and I feel like I have a message which is, about hope and never losing heart,
And it's so inspiring because I think you can see it in the work you do, and also in the way you've led your life. So,
thank you. That's
terrific.
I want to be an inspiration to other people as well. The way people like Ruta Lee have been to me and others.
I know.
Yeah.
You said that was wonderful for your cast because she kind of nurtures them.
And she's a team player, and I've learned so much from her, and she's just a model of somebody I'd like to be.
Well, I think you're probably a model to all of them, the next step down. Thank you, Hollye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hollye, who wrote Funny Business, Polo Lounge, Gold Records, everything. Hollye Leven.
Coronet Theater.
Don't go away because we'll be back with Phil Crosby Jr. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm with native Californian Phil Crosby Jr., who after graduation from Grant High School took a series of long trips around the world. He's dedicated to music like his father Philip and his grandfather, legendary Hollywood icon Bing Crosby. And Phil started out kind of in show business as a child actor.
That's right.
And how did you get those funny commercials that you were in?
Well, my mom was, looking for a way to sneak into the biz, and I think there was a union strike, and so got me on TV a few times. Made a little bit of hay and had a good time.
Did you ever start? Did you take acting lessons or singing?
I did.
You did.
It was quite a long time ago. I was probably like 6 or 7 almost.
Oh, she started you right away.
Yeah.
Did you have other brothers and sisters?
I have half brothers and sisters. So my father had some kids. My mom had an older brother. So.
So you were. I see. So you're actually the only child of
Peggy and Phil. Yep,
Peggy and Phil. That's really great. So after high school, why'd you go away if you were doing commercials? And
Well, I only did that for a couple years in my youth, and I didn't really feel it was for me. You know, it took me away from the kid things you want to do, and so I didn't really do a lot of acting. I didn't do any acting in high school.
were you taking music lessons?
I wasn't. You know, that would have been preferred. I wish I'd been kind of brought up with music, kind of
But it wasn't in your family, even though your father was a singer?
Well, my mother was an actress, and she wasn't a musician, so she didn't really think didn't know that I would be inclined towards that. And I really didn't know myself until after I went traveling and then came back for a while, and I was invited to join a band by some friends from high school.
So it was like just really spontaneous?
It was. I came to it in the roundabout way.
Well, you were hanging out with these Deadheads, I hear.
Yeah, that was
well,
another...
wasn't that music for you?
Yeah, it was. I got to, I spent a lot of time drumming around cities of America, and it was interesting, very educational in its way, but...
Were you self-taught then when you were drumming?
Yeah, I'm totally self-taught. I mean, I have taken some mentors with, I had some good vocal coaches, but harmonica, guitar, drums, all that's self-taught.
So when you got to London, what did you plan to do?
When I went to London, to Europe, I was stay away from home as long as possible.
Oh, that was the point?
Yeah, that was it. I didn't have any agenda, anywhere. It was just like, how long can I keep this up? And I left Los Angeles with like $1,700, and I didn't go back for like 6 months. I worked my way all over.
You
the place.
did work.
Yeah.
And what were some of the things? Because some of them were really bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I've fallen into some strange things. Well, London, I did some just work in a warehouse, kind of temp stuff, and. Then when I made it to Turkey, I was invited to, just to help sell carpets. They're like the Turkish mafia over there with their carpet business. Boy, they're crazy. That was interesting, and then Israel and Egypt, and I didn't make any money.
Was it just to see what was going on?
Yeah, just to experience life. Growing up in LA, I wanted to see what other adventure there was to be had in the world.
What happened with your name? Was there name recognition or not?
Not at that time. When I was growing up, it was people would always talk to me about it, but it was a strange thing because I didn't really have the Crosby family around me, and so I was often uncomfortable with telling people about my grandfather.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of years, though, I've really come back to embrace it, and I listen to his music a lot, and he's a great inspiration.
So that has been the inspiration, listening to it rather than being a part of the family.
Well,
being intermingled with the family.
And also, I think if I'd have realized, what a great singer he was, and like what a hip guy he was, and his jazz music, I really probably would have come to it earlier.
This is a picture of your grandfather and his sons.
Yeah, and my grandmother Dixie Lee.
And your grandmother. And you didn't really know your grandmother or grandfather, did you?
No, my grandmother passed away not long probably after that.
Is this your father over here?
That's my father on the left.
And your father was one of the twins?
Philip and Dennis.
And the other?
Dennis is over Bing's shoulder, and then there's Lindsay in the back, and then Lindsay in the front and Gary in the back. And
do you have any of your uncles left?
No, they're all gone.
They're all gone?
Yeah, my father was the last to go of the four.
And they were very young.
Well, they were. My father was
young.
Yeah, in his 60s. He was
and I
younger
think
than
this one is really cute. This is your father is a baby.
Yes, my father is sitting there in the front with his big head. No. Beautiful head. Yeah, that's my Bing and Dixie. I don't even know. That must be a long time ago.
But this was your great photograph that you brought.
I'm glad to have
that. Well, did any of his friends help you?
No, but I've had to, now things are, I'm just now starting to meet a lot of my father's friends. Like I'm singing in some places in Hollywood and off
Just
Hollywood
because
Boulevard.
you're out there, you mean?
Yeah, and I'm running into guys that own businesses and that worked with my father and my uncles, and it's exciting for me now, actually, after this whole kind of coming back to it and they're gone. I can't go and talk to my uncles and my dad now, so it's kind of a good timing.
One of the things that you want to do is perpetuate that Crosby name, because your grandfather started. Of course, he was a solo. He was a singer on his own, and he was an actor, and he did everything in Hollywood. But he started in a small group, didn't he?
That's right.
Which was called?
The Rhythm Boys?
The Rhythm Boys.
That's right.
And I don't have a picture of the Rhythm Boys, do I?
No.
But this is the next phase after the Rhythm Boys. Did that kind of put your grandfather into the forefront, the Rhythm Boys?
Yeah, he hooked up with the Paul Whiteman Orchestra, and they
at
were,
that time.
you know, they were relatively well known, but yet, you know, he got hired just coming down from Washington, and they had a little kind of a vaudeville style kind of comic music group where the two piano players, Al Rinker and Harry Barris, and Bing just banging on cymbals and kind of like a three-part harmonies, you know, and it was a fun kind of, you know, Spike Jones kind of esque.
Oh, it was like that. Yeah. Oh, I see.
And and then when he started doing a little bit more singing, he got discovered, and then eventually they just like, well, this guy's gonna be big.
But he didn't do anything with his brother, Bob, who was so they didn't start together.
No, he helped Bob out. You know, somebody, I just found this out recently. Bob was back up in Spokane, and somebody said, hey, you know, you're related to Bing Crosby. We want you to come down and sing for us, you know. And he told a story. He's picking cucumbers, and he was like, his dad's like, well, you can't sing like your brother. And he said, no, but it beats picking cucumbers. You know?
Anything,
so
right?
He was off too.
Well, the next group was your set of uncles who started. What were they called?
They were the Crosby Boys.
The Crosby Boys. Yeah. And did they write their own music and sing, or what?
They did you know, this is in the early '60s or the late '50s. I think they did a lot of different types of music. Like Bing, it didn't, you know, they would do like a jazz tune and a country tune, and they kind of did a lot of different.
And there
stuff.
they were on the cover of Life magazine, which is pretty great, wasn't it? Were they successful?
Well, they did for a number of years. They toured, and then there was just three of them. They apparently had a backroom brawl with Gary, and Gary was out, and it was just the three of them. And then it was just my dad, and Gary had his career. So it wasn't like they didn't have immensely successful careers, but it was enough. You know, they worked a lot for over a number of years.
And now we have Phil Crosby Jr. Quartet.
Yep.
And how did you choose the people to be with you?
That's been a process. In fact, I've just recently replaced one of the guys in the band. He went off to New York and to do something else. And you know, when I started out, you know, it was hard to find. You know, I want the best in the business. With jazz, you need like really good people because they're out there. You know.
But how do you know? I mean, if you haven't been schooled in it, you just have this natural ability.
Well, I think so. I mean,
it's just naturally.
Bing had that too. He, you know, like a good sense of rhythm and time, and. I think that's actually my strongest suit is just my natural feel for music.
And even though you don't play an instrument professionally, do you play an instrument?
No, I not professionally. Right now I'm just singing. I'm focusing on the voice, and you know, because I'm getting compared to their bingle, and that's pretty tough to live up to.
What happens? Are any of his coaches still around?
Gosh, and I don't know if anyone's still around.
Because. Wouldn't you have to go get coached on something?
Well, I have had a couple coaches, and you know, I'm still looking. I find you know, there's a different person that'll help you in different, you know, stage presence and you know, pattern.
I was going to say timing and.
Well, that's all my. You know, I select all my own tunes, and how I interpret them is all mine. You know, but like. Really, you know, when doing blues and country and rock and roll, it's like that's a total different, you know, world than singing jazz. You know, like I've had to retrain myself as a singer to.
And you sing at the Wyndham Hotel.
The Wyndham Bellage. It's 1020 San Vicente. We're there every other Sunday.
And so, what you just do you introduce the songs? Do you write any of the music?
Well, my old piano player was a composer, so we have a couple original tunes. I'm not much of a songwriter, unfortunately. Bing, actually, your last guest was wonderful. We really envy people. Bing was quoted as saying that he would have traded his whole career, which was one of the mega giant careers of show business, if he could have written one hit song. So that shows you how...
He wasn't either, was he?
No, he kind of cooperated with a couple people on a couple songs, writing lyrics. But yeah, it's something special when you write a hit tune.
What about your cousins? Are any of them musical? Do you play? Could you have a band or a group with
Unfortunately,
cousins?
I've got one cousin who likes to sing. That's Dave Crosby, Lindsay's oldest. He's going to be there this Father's Day. We're going to have some Crosbys at the Bellage at the 1020 room. And he
But
sings.
there aren't that
no,
many?
unfortunately, I wish that my other cousins had gotten into it, but I'm the only one. pretty
So
much.
what happens? I guess as it goes down further and further, the kids just don't have the interest,
Well, I think
or they're not trained, or
our fathers had a tough time of it, in being shadow, and so I don't think that they really inspired us to do it. And like I didn't really think about it until I realized that how much I'd enjoy it.
How tough was it to break in with that name?
Well, it's helped a little bit, but it helps and it hurts. It helps and it hurts. Because
right.
sometimes you get introduced and stand up in front of a bunch of people, and boy, they expect being incarnate. And nobody, they say, "Do you sing like Bing Crosby?" And I say, "Well, nobody sings like Bing Crosby, But it has helped. A lot of people have shown interest, and it's opened a couple doors, and I feel like I have this, almost a duty and a right to do this material, and it really hits home. I love jazz music. I love the classics and the standards.
Do you get people like swooning and saying, "Oh, I remember he sang that in the song"? Do you sing songs that he sang?
Oh, I get some girls swooning. There's nothing like that. Boy, you can charm a woman with some of these. This music is like, you just, they melt.
It doesn't feel old to you, right?
No, not at all, not at all. And we do original arrangements. Like we'll take a Bing tune that was with an orchestra, and then we'll put some rhythm to it that wasn't really in the original recording.
Well, I think going full circle and coming back and living in California again and following your family's history is just probably, I don't know, it seems like it would be hard.
Well, it would be, but I really found, and I searched, I did everything, I went everywhere.
So you went.
And I think I found my niche now. I feel that way, and I'm involved with some people in Hollywood, and I'm really interested in creating kind of this renaissance, and bringing back like this golden age, and doing shows that, like this show at the Wyndham Bellage it's like a variety show. So I have guest singers and I do duets.
Oh, you do? Oh.
People just love the duets. I'll do "Swinging on a Star" with somebody as a duet, and people just. They love it because it's real entertaining.
It's interactive
there's
in a way.
There's comedy, there's some music, and it's people love it.
What about Broadway? Have you ever thought of doing something like that?
Well, I don't know if I'm ready for Broadway, but if they're ready for me, I'll be there.
You can start showing your acting abilities too.
Yeah, well, I want to develop this variety show with kind of like a vaudeville, renaissance, bringing it back.
That's interesting because it's been so long since your grandfather that to have you now start where he left off, it's almost like the right timing, isn't it?
Yeah, and well, I mean, you listen to the radio and television and movies, you hear all the standards. Everybody's really into it now, and it's worthwhile. It's great. It's great music.
We're so happy you came and shared this with us. I'm going to hold up a couple more pictures as we're leaving, and. Thank you. Thank all of you for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, and we'll see you next time. The Joan Quinn Profiles. Bye.